I want to welcome everybody to today's call about the escalations of May 2021 and the clashes that have been taking place predominantly in mixed cities, but also throughout Arab society within Israel. It's a very difficult time. Things are unfolding very rapidly. And therefore we expect this will be the first of a series of briefings on the impact of the most serious Jewish-Arab clashes within Israel in decades, if not history. I want to make it clear that we are the Interagency Task Force on Israeli-Arab Issues. The escalations are happening on many fronts, but our focus is to look at why, after years of similar flashpoints in East Jerusalem, in the West Bank, in Gaza, the escalations inspired explosions between Jews and Arabs within Israel as it has now. Before I give a little more context to today's program, I want to say that the efforts to make sense of what has happened and what needs to happen now are ongoing. What is clear is that the impact on Jewish-Arab relations in Israel is profound. There is an enormous amount of fear, anger, sorrow, frustration, exhaustion, and heartbreak there as well as here among participants on this call. Today, our aim is to begin to give some scale and specificity to what is transpiring and some insight into the context into which the sparks landed within Israel. Some of this is about the economic realities in which a high number of Arab boys and young men have been out of school and work for more than a year due to the coronavirus. Some of it is about the high rate of activity of crime organizations that have been active in recruiting among this population. Some of it is about the unstable political context in which sparks are flying right now. All of these issues are complex and deep and also very sensitive. And there's no doubt we'll hear things that are very challenging on today's call. Many parallels are being drawn to the events of October 2000, which were traced to as well in the investigations of inquiry. This was the last time that there were significant escalations within Israel between Arab citizens and at the time Israeli police. They were ultimately also traced to economic and social frustrations. The difference here is that these escalations today are coming on the heels of more than a decade of economic development efforts and shared society work. Another difference is that today the eruptions are on the street. This is raising many questions about, do we understand were these needs met over this time? How is this changing our focus and what needs to be going forward? And what has happened to shared society, organizations, and leadership at this time? Again, we see this as the beginning of a conversation because what is clear in all that has transpired is that the impact is profound, and we'll be looking and learning from this for some time. So there are many registrants to today's call. We will follow up with a short summary report and hope that you will join us not just for today, but for the series of discussions. To share with us the preliminary insights from the field, we have three leaders from shared society organizations. Naim Obeid is the CEO of the Akko Center for Arts and Technology. Ola Najami is the Director of Safe Communities Initiative at the Abraham Initiatives. Ruth Lewin Chen is the Director of Shared Cities Initiative at the Abraham Fund Initiatives. All three have been, have their work, their eyes and their ears rooted in mixed cities and in Arab society. And I'm delighted to welcome them to share their insights about this past week. A little bit more housekeeping before I forget. The chat is open on this call. You're welcome to use it, but for the questions that will be open to our participants, please use the Q&A. We have with us on as panelists Ilan Amit, our Israel representative from the task force. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Liron Shoham from the Interagency. I'm the director of the Interagency Task Force on Israeli Arab Issues. Thank you for the person who asked that on chat. We are an educational organization about Arab society. We have with us task force staff, Ilan Amit, who is our Israel representative, who may jump in with clarifying insights or respond to questions on chat, as well as Erica Shaps, who will also be our educational programs manager, who will also be responding. Jimmy Tabor from the Abraham Initiatives is also available to answer questions about Abraham Initiatives on the chat. With no further ado, I'd like to open this call and begin with moderated questions. We'll have 3 or 4 moderated questions and then open it up to audience Q&A. I want to begin with, so welcome to our panelists, Naim, Ola, and Ruth. Naim, I want to begin with a question to you. You run a community center for informal and vocational education that has an underlying shared society mission in Akko, which is to develop the population of Akko, Jewish and Arab, together. Can you please tell us a little bit about yourself, about Akko, and what this last week was like from the perspective from your vantage point as the CEO of this center?
Yes, good evening, everyone. I'm not very happy to speak in such circumstances. I was hoping to meet more people in a better circumstances. I'll start with myself. I was born and raised in Akko. I'm 49 years old. I had my own business, started as a business as a sound engineer. In Akko, I have my own studio, my successful business. At some point, I noticed how the city is in the need for community activities and for our church society. And I got connected to Bill Stickland vision with the help of Mark Frank that brought this to Akko, this successful model to Akko from Pittsburgh. I was fascinated by the idea and how powerful it is, and to bring people together with this great opportunity to give this as a gift for the city. In all time, I remember myself really living in a shared society, and this feeling somehow, when I got older, got lost somehow. People think that we made it better. I believe we made it worse with the time. From my, I remember better things in our shared society. I was born in a Jewish neighborhood, and I remember back then we had such a great opportunities, and we celebrated Sukkot together, and Christmas they came to our house, and somehow there was a great connection. Nothing is perfect, but I believe it was even better. From that point of view, I started working on how we can do this better. And if you remember, we had an incident in Akko in 2008 in Yom Kippur that made it explode once and say, oh, there is a problem that everybody was hiding behind, and nobody really noticed that the shared society is leaking out of control, of help, of support, and somehow everybody's busy with some other stuff happening around. With that feeling, after getting successful at my business, I thought I could make it better for my community, and in my connection that came with Mark Frank and Bill Stickland to start this model in Akko. Somehow it really helped people to get together. First of all, because naturally we are the first facility that bring people really together, bring students within the ages of 12 years old up to 16 and a half years old. They come together and they have this great meeting with technology and art, and we take the focus on the things they love and universal language, which is technology right now for the kids. And then they get connected. We make sure to have them from both sides, 50%, 50%. What happened there is usually it was their first opportunity to meet the other. I think Mark is a person that really asks the right questions when he brought this to Israel. He asked about the shared society and shared cities. And when they mentioned Akko, he asked a few questions. And the questions were very simple. Where do my kids go to school? And I said, oh, they go to an Arab school. And my friend goes to the Jewish school. Where do we have our community centers? And guess what? Our community centers is separated. Our schools is separated. Religionally, we are separated. Our playground is separated. And then every time we have such an incident, we are totally surprised. Why is this happening? And it's more surprising now because we are working just on the surface of coexistence. We are working on how the city is looking right now, how great it is in the market, and how the hummus is great in Akko, right? And the culinary and travel and tourists and how fun it is to be around the city, but nothing is really handling the infrastructure of the city, of the coexistence of the people. And then explosion happens. And I have a lot to say about that. But I'll let you, Aaron, lead this to where you think it's possible because we have a limited time to discuss it.
If you can, I just want to anchor this a little bit because we didn't front load this webinar with a lot of explanation about what actually happened. Can you share a couple minutes of what you saw this last week in Akko, in terms of what were the escalations like? How did it transpire, and what did the Arab community say? What did the Jewish community say within Akko? What's the feeling there right now? And then we'll move into some of the deeper the causes.
Right. Well, it happens too fast. It's even almost impossible to go after it, to track exactly how it did happen. But I remember it happens from both sides. Like one side in the old city, the Arab sector was handling all what's going on in the old city as a place to be in. It's a safe house for them. It's a safe environment for them as much as they feel about it. And the Jewish community just handled it outside the new city in some areas. In the beginning, they were starting to go towards each other, to get more violence, and people were really angry. The anger was somehow we lost also the point of the focus where the anger is, because the Arab sector started even, putting things in fire in the Arab sector for the Arab sector. And the Jewish sector didn't even care who's in front of them. They just want to let the anger get out on each other. Of course,
you're speaking about fires. You're speaking about vandalism.
Exactly.
You're speaking about where the lynching attempts.
Now, within the old city, we notice some people claimed it's only for the Jewish sector, which is not totally right, because we have the community center working with the Arab sector, serving their families. It was burned too. Okay. We have Akko is an Arab owner. He's got on fire too, and some others. Like we have more than occasions. So at the beginning, it started as something, national between Arab and Jews. That's the first impression. But at some point, we lost that focus and something really happened, which I don't totally understand. And I can't lay it on, I can lay on more on anger, on where they're standing right now, how much, people are tense about it. And let's not forget, there's more dividing things or elements right now in the Israeli community than things that is gathering people together. Let's not forget, we are after a long term of elections, 4 times of elections. Usually elections, we all know what it does. It divides people, doesn't bring people together. That's for sure. We are after COVID-19. People are tense. People are in lack of opportunities or work opportunities. They are unemployed. They are angry. They are poor. They need resources, and nothing being given to them. Now, add a few elements to that. Also, what's happening in Jerusalem is add that to the fire that inspires also all the what's happening inside of us, and then you have suddenly explosion of the shared society, because all the infrastructures right now is tiered from each other because of what we're having on a daily basis. Elections, COVID-19, unemployment, people are not very happy. And the most important thing, the people that I notice from my balcony, from my home, is usually where kids between 13 years old up to 16, 17, maybe 18 years old.
You mean the people on the street that were
the people on the
problems.
streets? And by the way, it's not thousands of them. And I have to admit, I'm talking about Akko only. I don't know what's going in LED. I'll let the others talk about what's happening in their field. I can only say what I saw from my point of view and my place. The facts were there wasn't thousands of people. And we all know that in each society we have the extremists. The question is how they impact our lives. Because the extremists are what I saw is maybe at each group where 30 or 40 or maybe 50 people, 50 kids that is running around the streets and making all the damage. Now, 3 multiply 50, that's 150. It's not thousands of people. It's not the majority of Akko. It's not the people I meet on a daily basis in my work, in my street, on my neighbors. So most of us. But the problem is, I wouldn't go to the streets and make a mess. Maybe I'll talk to you. I'll talk to 167 people. They will be all over the news. The one kid that will throw a stone or make a fire somewhere, he's probably going to be on the news for millions and millions of people to watch. And if you take the equation and the balance between that, obviously, they will be more noticed than the majority of people. I have to say the majority of people are the same like me, my friends, my family, my neighbors. We all think about each other. We all meet together. We still insist on our shared society. And this is our message, okay? Yes, I admit we need to work on the infrastructures of our shared society. That's for sure. We didn't get there yet. And this explosion was made especially because we were just scratching the surface of the shared society.
So let's move on to, thank you, Naim. Thank you for getting us started. And I want to move on to a broader context now, because as you said, there's Akko, there was Lod, there was Ramle, there was Jaffa. Right. Ruth and Ola, you both work for the Abraham Initiatives, one of the largest and longest running shared society organizations in Israel. Ruth, you direct the Abraham Initiatives, the Shared Society program, which focuses on Jewish Arab relations in mixed cities. And Ola, you're the Safe Communities program, which aims to address the high rates of violence and police-minority relations. Can each of you tell us a few words about what made these focal areas main priorities of the Abraham Initiatives in recent years? From your vantage point, were there warning signs that such an eruption was possible, and what were some of the efforts to avert it?
Sure, so I'll start. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ruth Lewin Chen, and I'm the manager of Shared Cities Initiative at the Abraham Initiatives. And thank you for the opportunity to be here. So first of all, Iran, it's important to say that more and more cities and areas in Israel are becoming mixed. In addition to historically mixed cities, such as Akka, where Naim lives, which were predominant Arab until 1948, there are other cities which are becoming mixed, with the Arab citizens moving to these cities seeking increased standard of living. Okay, so we can see cities such as Nof HaGalil, Afula, Carmiel, Safed, Beersheba, cities which are predominant Jewish, but more and more Arab citizens are moving to. And we can see in general in Israel that there is an infinite number of points of contact between the Jewish and the Arab Palestinian populations in schools, homes, workplaces, academia, etc. However, there is no policy, no formal policy for the mixed cities in Israel, and there is not even a formal definition for what is a mixed city to start with. So we realize that when you have no definition of what is a mixed city, it's very hard for the government to also apply a policy. And why is such a policy important? Because if you want to create equality for all residents of the mixed cities, both Jews and Arabs, and if you want to also create many points of contact and integrating the two populations, then you need a governmental policy that will lead such a way. But what happens today is that really we see that no one thinks of the Arab people, of the Arab population in the mixed city. Not mayors or national leaders. There is no plan for the mixed cities. And we can also see that.
Do you mean, I just want to provide some context. So over the last, in 2015, there was the first multi-year economic development plan for Arab society, GR 922. And one of the discourses that's been going on in the background is that, very good, this affects Arab towns throughout Israel. There's definitely economic gaps, you have to close them, but a large population of Arab citizens live in mixed cities. And this plan does not affect those. Mixed cities are also some of the towns with some of the largest economic gaps. Income rates of Arab men, for example, are lower, not only compared to income rates of Israeli men by some 3,000 or 4,000 shekel a month, but even lower by 6 or 7% from average of Arab salaries.
Thank you, Liron. Exactly. So when the government did pay attention to the economic development of the Arab society in general, in Arab towns, the Ministry for Social Equality never really paid attention for the Arabs in the mixed cities, thus just increasing the gaps between the two populations. Also, of course, increasing feelings of anger and neglect. And by the way, Ola and I just today participated in a meeting with the Ministry for Social Equality, and they say we were wrong to avoid this issue of Arabs residents of the mixed cities. So like Naim really described his center that provides an opportunity for the two populations to meet, but that is just too well in the mixed cities in Israel. And we can really say, can
you all three panels, can you maybe stop there and say, you're saying that this is too rare in the mixed cities. At the same time, we often hear mixed cities, this is where Jews and Arabs are side by side. So maybe you can explain for a minute why Jews and Arabs side by side need shared society framework and
yeah, so the fact that Jews and Arabs live side by side does not really mean that they know each other's narratives, that they really get to know each other well, that they can really live together. I mean, and also what we see is that whenever you don't create integration between populations, then for the long term, you won't be able to achieve equality as well, okay? So if we take Akko, for example, I think it's a good example for a municipality that really invests many efforts in the equality for all residents, okay? But I think that also Akko has to be aware of the fact that if it does not invest more in platforms for Jews and Arabs to really meet each other and work together, okay, for the long term, they can find themselves in a big problem, okay, because that always creates inequality in the long term. And just one more point regarding the background to the backlashes that we've seen. It's the role of national politics is very important in recent happenings. Whenever we see the national politics coming into the mixed cities, and when the leadership is not committed enough for the residents, but too committed to a certain political party, then we can also see that the flames are higher. And this is why it's very important for the mayors to, first of all, be aware of the fact that they're supposed to serve all residents of the mixed cities. And therefore, I mean, not to let national politics into their city.
I want to come back to this point and this question of local leadership and the role of and how different local leaders have reacted to this. But I do want to go to Ola right now and share with us your perspective. You're director of Safe Communities. Crime is one of the underlying causes, as are police minority relations. Can you share with us how your work of the previous years has informed your perspective about what is happening now?
Okay, hello everyone. I'm talking to you from Nazareth. My name is Ola Najami Youssef, and I am the Safe Community Initiative, the director of Safe Community Initiative at Abraham Initiative. I'm happy to be here and sharing with you our perspective and what we are facing in Arab community. For me, as a part of the Arab minority of Israel, to anyone who has followed what has been happening in the mixed cities in recent years, as Ruth and Naim also introduced, the violence that we have in the last 2 weeks on both sides, Jewish and Arab, it's not a surprise for us, because all the time we have the stress in the field, and to understand what's happening now, we need to know and to learn the background of the relation shape between the Arab and the government, especially the relationship between the Arab community and the police services. The lack of trust on this field back into October 2000s, when 13 Arab was killed by a policeman. And now on these days, 3 citizens was killed, 1 Jewish and 2 Arab because the last conflict. For us in our organization, we try to promote integration and equality for the Arab citizen of Israel through large scale project that we designed to demonstrate programs, and that hopefully once we demonstrated that in the ground and we have impact, the government will adopt this program. For the past 15 years, the organization has been also working to rebuild the trust after October 2000, to rebuild the trust between the police and the Arab society in a project, work with the police department and with the community and with the with the leaders in my community, trying to have and to improve a personal security in the Arab localities. The Safe Community Initiative best understanding today that everything and every services that the government give to the Arab community is more or less more than the Jewish community, and especially in the mixed city, the Arab community faced a lack of trust, a lack of a program, a lack of services, a lack of work for the youth and the young people in the Arab community, especially in the mixed city. And this youth, this unaction youth, they didn't have anything to lose, so they go to the street and they have a violence and vandalism against also their community. When we saw in Nazareth that they fired the bank and the post office and the bus station, it's the angry of this youth coming also to our community, not just for the against the Jewish community. And Naim, I think that you also faced that in Akko, that this youth, this young people, that they didn't have anything to do, they didn't have any hope, they didn't have any academic ways, any work, any their employment. They bring this anger to the community and to the Israel.
Allow me, Ola, to just to focus on this field, because I believe this is one of the most important elements of what we're having right now. The crime is rising around all Arab cities and villages. Okay, exactly. The crime rate is really rising highly. Violence and a lot of guns and stuff,
illegal weapons.
Exactly. So what's happening is actually the leak of leadership from one side. Youth that doesn't have any hope, crime families that is getting more and more soldiers to their area. From the background, the more they are more the stronger. So they're taking actually all the youth from community centers, from schools, and gather them together to be strong. Now, the most I don't know how I can describe this, but everybody's watching this for years now, and this is really happening in our cities, and the police is watching too, and he knows exactly where each drugstore is located in the city, where each place, and we can just point it out because we know exactly where it is. and everybody's turning their head aside and everything's fine. Now, as long as this is happening within the community, that's fine. But somebody thought it's going to stay there forever. But the stronger they're going to be, the more violent they're going to be, the more guns they're going to have, somehow these guns are going to go towards unwanted areas. And this is what's happening right now. This is it's not a fact of 2 days or 3 days or a week. This has been going on for a few years. And by the way, leaders of the community is saying, look what's going on here. There's something wrong. We have to be careful. And I have to say the attractions in the media and TikTok and things that is talking the universal language of the youth is even stronger than us. I can offer a 3D printing design, maybe photography class, or a video editing and cinema, but they can offer a gun, they can offer drugs, they can offer a lot of money that I can't offer as a community center, and they probably would like to go to the extremists because TikTok will highlight only the extremists between us and not the 10 million people that is doing the natural thing. So look at the odds here. We are just community watching what's happening, and we're not even trying to balance it somehow.
So continue what Naim said. It's really so many years of lack of services to the Arab community that came us to this crisis now, and the current crisis now began from the political move that produced escalation, especially as escalation service that the national politics that now a Jewish and Arab partnership, it's not good for them in the political sector, and they tried to escalation the society together with the police men also, and it start from the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood to move the Arab residents from there and bring settlers, and also restricting the Arab Muslim to go to the Al-Aqsa. For me, as a part of the Arab community, and Ramadan is the most holy and the most
holy religious.
Holy religious also start there, and also the fact that the police protection the Jewish people from the Arab people without give the Arab people the services that they need and their rights to have these services from the police, that bring all this crisis now. And although we bring you the picture and what happened now in Israel, I think from this also crisis situation, we have a lot of opportunity to rebuild and to build a shared society, because we understand that we didn't have another place to go. We will stay here and live here together, and we have to find the way to the good way to live together.
I want to go there. I just feel like, thank you. You've put, the three of you have put so much on the table. I want to just connect some of the dots to summarize, and then open it up to what does this mean? So if I have to, on one foot, in a very poor way, summarize what we've heard, there were escalations, there were sparks related to in East Jerusalem that were led up to over the course of Ramadan. That had to do with the closures of the Damascus Gate. They had to do with evictions in Sheikh Jarrah, in East Jerusalem neighborhood of Sheikh Jarrah, which are ongoing issues, but in this time happened sort of all at the same time in a very unstable political context. And it happened at a time where you have Arab youth, young Arab men with no job, no education for about a year and a half, poverty, and it's time to Ramadan, for Ramadan, it's time to go and worship at the Al-Aqsa Mosque. And so you get involved with these events happening in Jerusalem. And it's all over social media. We were tracking the enormous influence of these images running faster than wildfire, sharing and escalating clashes that were really local to one place and making them available to everybody. And what you're saying is that these sparks from East Jerusalem inflamed a situation that was really ready to that filled the space for people, yeah. And that it was in many ways fell into a situation where enforcement, we talked a little bit of enforcement, police minority relations, but I would love to have a little bit more discussion about what the role of enforcement of these are, and go back to Ruth's point about how local leadership could act to mitigate during and still going forward. And then let's talk about what shared society organizations are saying needs to happen now, whether it's from civil society or from the government or elsewhere. Ruth, yes.
Can I answer a question or two regarding the Garinim Toranim?
Absolutely, yes. There are many questions coming in. We're going to try to integrate them, but go ahead, Ruth.
Okay, so the Garinim Toranim, if you're not familiar with it, it's basically an organized effort of Orthodox Jews, and like someone here wrote, it's very similar to settlements, okay? Only it happens inside the historical mixed cities, okay? So you have a big group of families of Orthodox Jews going and living in the center of the mixed cities. We can see that actually in all the mixed cities, in Akka, Haifa, Nof HaGalil, Ma'alot Tarshiha, Lud, Ramle, and Tel Aviv Jaffa, okay? And so basically they are going to the mixed cities in order to Judaize them. There is no nicer way to put it. I mean, they also declare that this is what they intend on doing. And what it means is that it already creates tensions between the members of the Garinim Toranim to the Arab residents of the mixed cities, which are not at the same socio-economical level. Usually the people who are members of the Garinim Toranim are coming from a higher socio-economical background, and they come to live with a lower socio-economical level of Arab residents of the mixed cities. They're not really trying to integrate. They're not really trying to see the needs of the Arab population. And also it's important to say that the Garinim Toranim are getting a huge support from the state in the form of just millions of shekels every year. They also receive the support of several or of most of the mayors of the mixed cities. Okay, it's also maybe important to mention that most of the mayors of the mixed cities are members of the Likud right-wing party. So they usually support Garinim Toranim. So the entire atmosphere is one of an effort to Judaize the mixed cities. And we definitely, in the recent happenings in the mixed cities, we really saw the destructive force of the Garinim Toranim on the relations between Jews and Arabs in the mixed cities. And we believe that in the Abraham initiatives, that the state should really put that on focus and see what it can do in order to really reduce the support or really stop the support of these Garinim Toranim, which increases the tensions and the clashes between the populations.
I want to add something to illustrate what this looks like, taking it outside of perhaps the political framing, to say that on the ground you have Arab communities who live in homes and houses that are often under dispute. They struggle to get building rights. They often have their interface with the state is one that provides demolition orders, even in the mixed cities and especially in Lod, while at the same time, without knowing necessarily, without transparency into what is happening with the Garin Torani necessarily, you see beautiful new buildings come up after your own family has been struggling to develop, to get the rights to just expand and have a place to live for your children and grandchildren. Housing, there's a huge housing crisis in Arab society, and this dispute falls. These developments fall directly on this sense, this brewing sense of frustration and a crisis of lack of space and lack of expansion possibilities. So this is another perspective on what's happening. And mixed cities are the fault line, and there are many. This time around, what we've heard and read is that the Arab citizens who were going to East Jerusalem to worship, to be part of demonstrations, drew very strong parallels what is happening in Sheikh Jarrah, which is related also to housing. They felt very strongly that this is also happening in their own backyards, and so the correlation was drawn very closely. I want to bring us back to the question of what now? What are shared society organizations looking at? Maybe Ola, there was discussion about before this. There was a push to get a crime bill on the table, and some momentum around that. What is the discourse now? And maybe Naim, you can share with us what the discourse is within Akko and what the desire is to come back and capture some of the youth that are in these conditions.
Well, Ola, go ahead and then
okay. For me now, if I see if there is another opportunity in this crisis, the answer is definitely yes. And the way that we have to struggle that is to produce more and more meetings, meeting points between people from the two sides.
We have a question. I'm sorry, we have a question about this in the list, which says, meetings. We've heard about meetings and the asymmetry between Arabs and Jews. Can you go a little bit about can you share a little bit about your thinking about what kind of meetings and what the purpose of these are and what the starting point is now?
We have to understand that the fact that the Jews and Arab people they are everywhere, in the hospital, in the workplace, in the shopping, in every place. There is no place just for when I go to the hospital to have services to my children, so I will meet the Jewish people there. And I think meetings on the leader sectors in Jewish and Arab, and also in the schools, on the mixed city, on the community centers, we have to build these meetings and to continue. We are doing that in Abraham Initiative, but we have to continue that, and we have to make it more in the in the Arab society and in the Jewish society, and we have to adopt these meetings also in the government services, in the educational ministry, and everywhere. To the Jewish people have to learn the Arab language, and the Arab people have to learn and to know the Jewish the Hebrew language. We have to produce these meetings in every place. In the newspaper.
Let's bring it someday, just because we're starting to get short of time. Can you illustrate for us your vision and how such meetings and how such shared awareness would affect, for example, policing in this situation? Police coming in. There are questions in the Q&A about, are there Arab police? Would it help to have our Arab police forces, our police forces in mixed cities, mixed police forces, and how?
I don't mind to if the police will be Jewish or Arab. I need to ask this policeman to give me the equal services. it doesn't matter if he will be Jews or Arab policeman. We ask for equal services from the police.
And did you see we heard reports right now, we saw terrible indications of there were Arabs in the streets. There were also Jewish extremists bust in to mixed cities. This was a situation that was overwhelming to police by any means. Is there a sense that they were able to try to enforce in an equal way? What is the feeling that's coming out of this about the status of police minority relations and what needs to be done?
In this crisis point right now, I don't know how the Arab community will accept and understand the meetings with the police, because the police men look for me as a part of the Arab community as a security dangers for the government. But we understand that we didn't have another police here. Did you hear the shooting?
What are we hearing?
It's a why? Just a minute. I have to check my children, please.
Please go. Hopefully everything's okay.
Allow me to, in the meanwhile, hope everything is fine with Ola and their family. Allow me to zoom out for a minute just to see the whole picture. You asked about the police. The police right now is considered for the Arab sector as a representative of the government of the country, of Israel state, which is totally okay. Now, as long as we feel separated, it doesn't belong to us. It's nothing to talk to us. It's against us. At the same point, we start feeling as one nation, one people. We are sharing the same resources. We have equality. I believe this will shift slowly to a better situation. There's not against me. It's like, education. I educate my kids. Oh, the police is our friends. He protects us. And some other will educate their kids as, oh, he's against us. He's from the country. The feeling of we are part of a country, there's nothing we can force it. We just can make it happen or not happen. And the more we are observing and the more we can get unity between different sectors, and the more we accept people others than us religionally, I believe we can make it feel better, and then normally it will shift to another level. Right now it's considered somewhere else. That's a zoom out. I'm going to go back. Of course, I want to just remind everyone, we condemn all the violence and anything from any side. It's very important for us as a community leaders to make sure that we don't like everything was happening, but we have to analyze it in a very realistic way to understand and to protect ourselves from the next conflict. And when people ask me, Liron, what are you doing at ACAT? Everything is fine. The coexistence looks great in Akko. I said, I'm preparing to the next conflict. That's what I did for 4 years. For the past 4 years, I've been preparing to this. And I can tell you, we managed to serve 1,780 students at ACAT. I can sign on this. None of them were on the street that day, okay? And none of them will be on the street that day because they have different tools. And the tools they have is they meet the other, they meet the Jewish sector, they meet the Arab sector, and they are surprised at the beginning, and they're totally separated from each other. For the third session, the fourth session, they start working together as not teams, but they start, building bridges and talking to each other. Some of them end like friends. And if I would been able to do 17,000, I can believe that I would be, avoiding the next conflict or absorbing more of the conflict to make it easier on all of us.
I believe in our prep call, you also mentioned that the 1,700 that have come through your center, some of them went out and started to do cleanup in Akko.
Right.
Ruth, I want to also have you get back to local leadership.
Okay, so just a couple of sentences about the police, and then also a bit about what we're doing these days in order to still promote our vision for shared society. So just out of the entire police force, about 4 to 5% are Palestinian officers. Like Ola said, it doesn't really matter because what really matters is what type of policing services the Arab citizens are getting. But we do expect that after everything that's happening, we'll see maybe a lower percentage of Arabs wanting to join the police forces. Just one figure, just a couple of days ago, it was published that 116 indictments were charged against people who had any kind of involvement in the riots, in the violent incidents. All of them are Arab, okay? Now, we know that there was a lynch in an Arab driver in Bat Yam. We saw many documentation of other violent incidents that were taken towards Arab citizens, okay? How come not even one Jewish citizen had indictment charged against him? That really raises some questions. But just to be a bit optimistic as well, so we can say that the civil society is much stronger today than it was in 2000, okay? It's, the organizations working to promote shared society are stronger today, but we still need to remember that we are dealing with very strong forces that we have to really try and change the way they work and their mechanisms. So we still have a lot of work in front of us. Some of the steps that we did in the last week, one, we really initiated an emergency campaign to counter the media narrative, okay? Our campaign talks about living together and saying we're not willing to give up this vision of a shared society in Israel, of Jewish and Arabs living together. We also published a joint statement from council members, Jews and Arabs in the mixed cities, which called to lower the flames, to avoid acting in a violent way. So that's also an important thing we did. After we did it, we also saw other mayors and local municipalities that also had taken similar steps, but we can definitely say that we were maybe the first ones to initiate that. We are working a lot these days to provide guidance for all kind of organizations and schools and academia and basically all kind of shared spaces in which Jews and Arabs meet in order to really guide them. What can they do? How they can address the anxiety and the fear that people are currently feeling. So we have a lot of work in this area as well. Arabic courses, it's not something new that we do, but now we are going to increase the number of Arabic courses that we're offering to organizations, to the municipalities of the mixed cities for the Jewish workers, of course, because we also think it's a way to get to know better the Arab society and its culture, and to give better services. When a worker of the municipality understands some basic Arabic and knows more about the Arab culture, then they can also provide better services, of course. Same, we also offer cultural competency courses for the same reason, to be aware of the unique challenges of an organization which employs both Jews and Arabs, and what can be done in order to make this space better and to be aware of the different narratives people are coming from. And we can say that also in our organization, which is a Jewish Arab organization, we're also trying to model this shared living. And we are also impacted by the situation, and that's also a challenge, but we're working on it also inter-organizationally.
Thank you. And we have a few minutes left. Olaf, First of all, you're back, so I assume that, and I saw you wrote in the chat that you're okay. I want to let you finish your thoughts, and then there's a question about what kind of review is required. That I want actually Ilan, our colleague, to jump in and give some insights after Ola speaks.
Okay, thank you for your asking. It's our usually day in my neighborhood. Talking about illegal weapons in the Arab community, this is part of what we are facing. So every day we have a shooting in my neighborhood because there's a conflict between between two families, and it's take us to think where is the police and why they didn't treat the phenomena of crime and violence in the Arab community. There was 5 people was killed from the two families in the last year, and nobody was nobody was in the jail because this and we face that every day. Backing to the police services, I want to say that now in this crisis period, I don't know how we can thinking, and I don't know how the Arab community will accept the police services in the Arab community. But for us as an organization, we do believe that we didn't have another. We didn't have our own police, and we have to work to change the mind of the police services. And I want to say that we saw in the last week a statement of the Mafkal, the head of the police services, talking about that he will give equal services for Jewish and Arab citizen. I don't know if after his statement he will continue to be the Mafkal or not, but we saw that in the police.
Am I frozen or is Ola frozen?
Ola's frozen.
Ola's frozen. Oh. Ilan,
I just want to jump in and maybe add another component here to the discussion, because we've been discussing mixed cities, intercommunal violence in mixed cities, the riots, the lynches, the events of the last week, and I think there's another component here that we cannot ignore, because some of you acknowledged or mentioned the involvement of Jewish religious groups who reside in mixed cities, coming from different areas of the country. Another component here that we cannot ignore is this very strong forces of gentrification in mixed cities, and the process of gentrifications that initiates with the incoming of such groups. Rent prices go up, housing prices go up. All of this is taking place within already an existing housing crisis within Arab society, pushing Arabs further to the streets, literally, in a situation in which the lack of vacant lands for Arabs in Arab towns and villages all over the country pushes young couples into mixed cities. So it's not for nothing that we have all of these groups of young adults, youth from all of the country participating in those clashes in Arab society. There's also a very strong socio-economical aspect, a very strong housing aspect to what we've been seeing in the past weeks in mixed cities. In Akko, in Lod, in Yafo, you can literally go one by one through the mixed cities and look at the very strong processes of gentrification and socio-economical forces causing or leading those riots in some cases. So just to add this to the discussion about community leaders, the leadership vacuum that we're seeing in the past years in Arab society, this is also something we cannot just ignore as a motivating force for those intercommunal clashes in past week.
Thank you. I want to invite Ola to you. You were cut off, so I want to invite you for the last minute to finish your thoughts, and then just tell everybody that we will reach out with additional opportunities because there's still so much to unpack on this briefing.
Sorry for the, I don't know what happened. I want to share about with the personal issue for me to work in a mixed organization, shared organization with the Jewish. In the first day of the crisis, my children asked me, "Mom, did we will saw Ruth children in the future as a police or as a soldiers in the checkpoints? Did they will did they will know that this is Hadi and I am the friends of Offer?" And I said absolutely yes. And if we can manage these meetings more and more and more in another circles, it will help us to know each other. I have so difficult in my family that because I am working on a Jewish, an Arab Jewish organization, and when I tell them did we have another options? We are going to the universities together. We are working together. We are in the supermarket together. If we will not be we will have the strength to say that yes, we want to build this society together, we will not go out from this crisis. So in this whole black period that we live, I think that we have a good opportunity to be more strong and to bring more light to this.
And we will continue trying to make sure that the American Jewish community can be part of this conversation and this strengthening. Thank you to everyone. We will share a recording of this. It'll be posted on our website. We're also happy to share it with all the registrants and participants. I see there's some requests. We're out of time. There's so much more. Good luck to everyone, and may you have a safe night and quiet night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you, Ola and Ruth. Thank you.
باي، مع السلامة، يعطيك العافية. باي.